Sharia, Islamic Sharia or Islamic lawful law, is the basic Islamic legal system derived from the religious precepts of Islam, particularly the Quran and the Hadith. The term Sharia comes from the Arabic language term Sharia, which means a body of moral and religious law derived from religious prophecy, as opposed to human legislation. Sharia deals with many topics, including crime, politics, marriage contracts, trade regulations, religious prescriptions, and economics, as well as personal matters such as sexual intercourse, hygiene, diet, prayer, everyday etiquette and fasting. Adherence to Sharia has served as one of the distinguishing characteristics of the Muslim faith historically. In its strictest and most historically coherent definition, Sharia is considered in Islam as the infallible law of God. There are two primary sources of Sharia, the Quran and the Hadiths. For topics and issues not directly addressed in these primary sources, Sharia is derived. The derivation differs between the various sects of Islam, and various jurisprudence schools such as Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, Hanbali and Jafari. The Sharia in these schools is derived hierarchically using one or more of the following guidelines: IJMA, Qiyas, Istisan and URF. Sharia is a significant source of legislation in many Muslim countries where some countries apply a majority or some of the Sharia code, and these include Saudi Arabia, Sudan, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Brunei, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Yemen and Mauritania. In these countries, Sharia-prescribed punishments such as beheading, flogging and stoning continue to be practiced judicially or extrajudicially. There has been controversy over what some perceive as a movement by various Islamist groups to introduce and implement Sharia throughout the world, including in Western countries, but attempts to impose Sharia have been accompanied by controversy, violence, and even warfare. Most countries do not recognize Sharia. However, some countries in Asia, Africa and Europe recognize parts of Sharia and accept it as the law on divorce, inheritance and other personal affairs of their Islamic population. In Britain, the Muslim Arbitration Tribunal makes use of Sharia family law to settle disputes, and this limited adoption of Sharia is controversial. The concept of crime, judicial process, justice and punishment embodied in Sharia is different from that of secular law. The differences between Sharia and secular law have led to an ongoing controversy as to whether Sharia is compatible with secular forms of government, human rights, freedom of thought, and women's rights. Etymology and origins. Scholars describe the word Sharia as an archaic Arabic word denoting pathway to be followed, or path to the water hole. The latter definition comes from the fact that the path to water is the whole way of life in an arid desert environment. The etymology of Sharia as a path or way comes from the Quranic verse 45-18. Then we put thee on the way of religion, so follow thou that, and follow not the desires of those who know not. Malik Ghulam Vaid in his Dictionary of the Holy Quran believes that way in 45-18 derives from Sharia, meaning he ordained. Other forms also appear: Shari'as, they decreed, and Shara'an, meaning spiritual law. The Arabic word Sharia has origins in the concept of religious law. The word is commonly used by Arabic-speaking peoples of the Middle East and designates a prophetic religion in its totality. Thus, Shariat Musa means religious law of Moses, Shariat al-Masih means religious law of Christianity, Shariat al-Majus means religious law of Zoroastrianism. The Arabic expression is a common translation for a nu omicron, mu omicron, sigma tau omicron, theta epsilon omicron. In contemporary Islamic literature, Sharia refers to divine law of Islam as revealed by Prophet Muhammad, as well as in his function as model and exemplar of the law. Sharia in the Islamic world is also known as Kanuni Islami. History. In Islam, the origin of Sharia is the Quran, and traditions gathered from the life of the Islamic prophet Muhammad. The The formative period of fiqh stretches back to the time of the early Muslim communities. In this period, jurists were more concerned with pragmatic issues of authority and teaching than with theory. Sharia underwent fundamental development, beginning with the reigns of Caliphs Abu Bakr and Umar for Sunni Muslims, and Imam Ali for Shia Muslims, during which time many questions were brought to the attention of Muhammad's closest comrades for consultation. During the reign of Muawiyah b. Abu Sufyan ibn Harb, California, 662 CE, Islam undertook an urban transformation, raising questions not originally covered by Islamic law. The Umayyads initiated the office of appointing Qadis, or Islamic judges. The jurisdiction of the Qadi extended only to Muslims, while non-Muslim populations retained their own legal institutions. Under the Umayyads, Islamic scholars were sidelined from administration of justice, and attempts to systematically uphold and develop Islamic law would wait for Abbasid rule. Al-Mansur felt a pressing obligation to make good on the promise to govern according to the Sharia, and in 771 found a respected member of the ulama to serve as the head of the Egyptian judiciary, and to swear to uphold the Sharia alone. The Qadis were usually pious specialists in Islam. As these grew in number, they began to theorize and systemize Islamic jurisprudence. The Abbasid made the institution of Qadi independent from the government, but this separation wasn't always respected. Since then, changes in Islamic society have played an ongoing role in developing Sharia, which branches out into fiqh and canon respectively. Progress in theory was started by 8th and 9th century Islamic scholars Abu Hanifa, Malik bin Anas, al-Shafi'i, Ahmad ibn Hanbal and others. Al-Shafi'i is credited with deriving the theory of valid norms for Sharia, arguing for a traditionalist, literal interpretation of Quran, Hadiths and methodology for law as revealed therein, to formulate Sharia. A number of legal concepts and institutions were developed by Islamic jurists during the classical period of Islam, known as the Islamic Golden Age, dated from the 7th to 13th centuries. These shaped different versions of Sharia in different schools of Islamic jurisprudence, called fiqhs. Both the Umayyad Caliph Umar II and the Abbasids had agreed that the Caliph could not legislate contrary to the Quran or the Sunnah. Imam Shafi'i declared, "A tradition from the Prophet must be accepted as soon as it become known, if there has been inaction on the part of a Caliph, and a tradition from the Prophet to the contrary becomes known later, that action must be discarded in favor of the tradition from the Prophet." Thus, under the Abbasids, the main features of Sharia were definitively established and Sharia was recognized as the law of behavior for Muslims. In modern times, the Muslim community have divided points of view. Secularists believe that the law of the state should be based on secular principles, not on Islamic legal doctrines. Traditionalists believe that the law of the state should be based on the traditional legal schools. Reformers believe that new Islamic legal theories can produce modernized Islamic law and lead to acceptable opinions in areas such as women's rights. This division persists until the present day. There has been a growing religious revival in Islam, beginning in the 18th century and continuing today. This movement has expressed itself in various forms ranging from wars to efforts towards improving education.